Kia ora koutou. I often get asked online or in real life, how do tram points work and why does MOTAT have 3 rails? Now, I'm not an expert at things, but I'm here at MOTAT today here in Western Springs, and I've asked around, got some answers, and hopefully I can answer those questions.
Let's start by looking at the rails. There are 3 because MOTAT operates a dual gauge. A narrow gauge of 4 foot or 1,219 millimeters and a wide gauge of 4 foot 8.5 inches or 1,435 millimeters using a common rail. The narrow gauge is used by the Wellington trams and the wide gauge is used by the Melbourne, Auckland and Wanganui trams. Generally, the tram switches or points are on the common rail with a plate for the other wheel. On the common rail, the tram rides on the tread as usual, but on the other rail, the tram momentarily rides on the edge of the wheel flange. This simplifies the mechanism and means the points have fewer crossings, frogs and moving parts to be made and maintained. This does, however, place additional stress and wear on the switchblades and on the tram wheels. The 2 sets of points at either end of the passing loop here at the Motion's corner stop have received an absolute beating over the last 40 years and are set to be replaced by a set of dual gauge switches soon.
A quick word first about some of the jargon that I'm going to talk about today involved in a set of points. This moving part here is called the points blade. This fixed part with a gap for the wheels to pass through is called the frog. I don't know why it's called that. If you do, drop it in the comments down below. This also fixed part is called the check or guardrail and can press against the wheel flange to stop a tram from derailing. You'll see these in places where derailments are more likely, such as points or steep corners, as well as places where derailments would be particularly bad, such as tunnels and bridges.
If a tram approaches the points heading towards the point of the blade, they're called facing points. And if they head the other way, they're called trailing points.
There are a few different ways that the points can be operated within the museum.
The first is to manually adjust them using a points bar. It very basically involves sticking the bar into the switchblade and forcibly moving it over. You generally only need to do this with facing points, since trams heading in the opposite direction can push the blade over. It will stay, however, you have to set it. This is great for the points heading to the tram barns, so you can manually set where you want the tram to go, and it might be different each time that you go through. The next version is similar, but there is a spring involved. This is usually where you have a normal way that you go through the junction. As a result, you'll no longer need to get out and use your points bar. For facing points, it'll already be set up for you to go through. For trailing points, the tram will gently push the blade over and it will spring back as soon as the tram clears the point. When you're on board, listen out for the clip-clop sound as it makes as the tram goes through. Then you have combination points. These points usually act like spring points, with incoming trams heading down the left side to the zone and outgoing trams heading down the other side, pushing the blade over as they go. But for some trams, they want to go down the wrong side, so they need to get out, and with this bar they can manually push the blade over and lock it just long enough for the tram to pass through. And here's a quick shot of it happening again, this time Erin changing the points so that 47 can go down the right hand side and then quickly changing it back so that 321 can go down the other side. Normally this doesn't happen this quickly or this closely, but of course this was a live day and so they had lots of trams in operation. Down here at Dockland Tramway in the Wynyard Quarter, all the trams here are on the wide gauge, and the points have 2 blades. Rather than stick the bar into one set of points and try to move them both, there is a slot in the middle from which you can move both together. I understand this is how the Christchurch Tramway works, except they've gone one step further with radio-controlled switch motors, saving the crew from having to get out to manually change them, but I don't have any footage of that yet.
So the MOTAT tramway is predominantly single-tracked dual gauge with some passing loops and a bit of complicated work happening with the goal of keeping costs down. Why then are there 2 sets of the overhead wires?
Simply put, this is also due to cost and complexity. In this case, the fewer junctions and frogs in the overhead, the less likelihood of things going wrong. This way, there is one wire for one direction and one for the other, without the need for as many frogs and switches. I understand another reason is to do with current drop, which is a complicated part of managing the overhead electricity supply for MOTAT and the tramway, and to make sure that we have consistent access to electricity while moving the trams.
Hopefully that answers any questions that you have about how tram points work, why trams slow down so much to go through them, and why sometimes they stop entirely to reset them. If you have any more questions or comments, or I've missed something, please let me know. Drop it in the comments down below and I'll see if I can find out the answer. So here you can see the new points ready to be installed. This one with the switch off to the right there. And what you can see is 1, 2, 3 switch blades. Really quite fine. Just you can see 2 of them going there and another one here. So this is the new tracks, new points, which have 3 blades rather than just one doing all that work, and this will mean that these points will last for a lot longer and be a lot more durable. The other thing that you can see here is that there is a slot here between the points, and if you look down you can see there's a little control here, just like you see at Dockline. So you have a points bar in there and you turn it to the side, and then that will move the points rather than jamming a points bar into this gap here and forcing the point over that way, which would be real neat. And here's another set of points. There's 4 all up, and this one you can see curves off to the left, and once again we've got a points control point here, and we've got these tongues, and you can see how beautiful they are. Look at that. Magnificent work, worth every cent, and there was a lot of cents involved. And here you can see all of the rail, and it's got the check rail here, perfect. It's going to be great, and of course it's all in a little frame here to keep it straight until it's ready to be used.